Before you some of the key points in reference to the clause of sublease in the lease deed. So what makes a lease deed valid? First thing is it must have the proper terms and conditions, and the terms and conditions that is mentioned in the lease deed must have clarity. That is to say, the terms and conditions should not have any ambiguity. That is, the terms and conditions so mentioned in the document of lease deed should not give scope for interpretations. So when there is no clarity on the clauses, on the terms and conditions, then it gives several interpretations. Legally it becomes less valid. The scope of litigations increase. Let me speak about one such clause, that is the sub-lease clause, which is generally included in the lease deed. When the lease deed, this document is entered upon between the lessor and the lessee, in order to avoid litigation, this lawyer costs or the documentation costs, generally the landlords, the lessors go to a typist or a Xerox shop and ask for a lease deed, cut copy and paste, and they just enter into a lease deed. Ignorantly the lessor signs, the landlord signs on the lease deed, just to save the registration charges and to save the lawyer's fees of few thousand rupees. They enter into a lease deed which is worth crores and crores of rupees and get into unnecessary litigations. So therefore, this video is made to open the eyes of the landlords, especially the high value lease deeds. First thing is you must subscribe to registration of the lease deeds. Second thing is you must engage an advocate, a learned person, a literate who can understand the language at least. If not an advocate, there must be a literate person who can understand the language. Without which it is quite but natural the landlords get into problems, litigations. And such problems, especially with the clause of sub-lease, is rising up. So in the lease deed contains so many points, and one of the point is, it simply says the lessor agrees the scheduled property to be subleased by the lessee. So this point itself is very dangerous, and it means several things. And it gives an indirect right to the leaseholder, that is the lessee, to sublease it at his wish, because any clause that is mentioned in any document which binds by contract of two or more persons, every point should be clear, perfect. There should be no scope for ambiguity. If at all, if the lessor agrees that the property can be subleased, then the clause sublease should be conditional. There must be conditions that is attached to the clause of sublease. Who can give sublease? So the lessor will give the lessee the right of sublease. Then, if the tenure of this lease is for the 5 years period, while the lease is coming to a near end, let us say after 4.5 years, if the lessee gives it to sublease as per the rights which he has acquired from that lease deed, and collects by right the money, the deposit, and then he vanishes, the landlord, that is the lessor, will be put into unnecessary problems, unnecessary uncalled litigations. and the litigations in India, it takes years together. So therefore, the landlord naturally undergoes loss because his property is held by a sublease holder to which the lease deed gives the authority, and the lease deed is ambiguous, it is not perfect. In such cases, unnecessary litigations will happen, and the landlord will undergo huge loss because the properties, especially in cities like Bangalore, where crores and crores are involved, especially during the companies, the lease of companies. So he runs the company for 4.5 years, and while the lease deed is coming to an end at the 4.5 year end of 4.5 years, when there is a 6 months of time, he will sublease it to somebody else, and he will collect the entire lease amount what he has paid to the lessor, the owner, and then he vanishes. That brings in a new litigation and a new problem, unnecessary burden on the lessor, on the landlord. Therefore, this clause sublease must contain, if at all, it is preferred that the lease deed should not contain the clause of sublease. If at all, for any specific purpose, if the clause of sublease is included, then that clause should specify that the sublease will be valid only with the written consent of the lessor, that is the owner. Sublease is only valid only when the financial transactions thus entered upon between the leaseholder and the sublease holder is witnessed and accepted and signed, authorized by the lessor, that is the landlord, and should also contain terms that the leaseholder cannot sublease it after a period of 2 years or 3 years. If at all any such sublease is entered upon, it is invalid. So these clauses must be clearly mentioned in the lease deed, without which it is guaranteed that the landlords will get into unnecessary